Tales of American Political History with Clint Hackney.
This is the story of our national anthem. Nobody asked for one. There was no formal competition to write one. Our national anthem just sort of happened. And though there was no formal competition to find and establish an anthem, there was, in fact, a lot of competition out there. The Star-Spangled Banner was adopted by Congress as America's official national anthem in 1931, but it was written 117 years earlier in 1814. So what took so long? One thing was that nobody said, "Hey, we need an anthem." Francis Scott Key was a lawyer and had a reputation as a good one. He was a prosecutor and a trial attorney. But in 1814, he was called on to negotiate the release of a colonial prisoner from the British during the War of 1812. A young, passive, but successful lawyer, Francis Scott Key, had been called on to negotiate the release of a colonial prisoner from the British in the War of 1812. During his negotiations, he learned that the British planned to attack and destroy the city of Baltimore, which was defended by Fort McHenry. The British, of course, knew that he knew, and so they held him and 2 other colonists aboard a ship until the invasion and battle were over. His host treated him not as a prisoner, but as a respected negotiator. It was on that ship that Key wrote the words of the Star-Spangled Banner. Key said he was inspired by the huge flag that was hoisted and remained flying above Fort McHenry. Francis Scott Key had found himself held on a British ship that was part of an attack meant to destroy Fort McHenry and the city of Baltimore in 1814. Inspired by the beauty of the American flag flying in the midst of loud and bright bombardment, he wrote the lyrics to the Star-Spangled Banner. Many today think he wrote the music also, but he never had a tune. He put the lyrics to an already existing melody. And also not known to many, he wrote 4 full, beautiful verses. Still, we only sing 1 verse today. The first step to becoming our anthem was that it was instantly a very popular song. After Francis Scott Key put his lyrics to an existing melody, it became instantly popular, and there was somewhat of a competition for many years as to what our favorite patriotic songs were. Yet there was still no public outcry for an anthem. Key's Star-Spangled Banner was criticized for being too militaristic, among other things, and other songs were thought to have better tunes. But in 1893, the song got its biggest boost as America's anthem. The U.S. Navy ordered that the Star-Spangled Banner be played for the colors. Just 2 years later, the Army did the same. Then, in 1916, President Woodrow Wilson issued an executive order declaring the song as our military anthem. Though it had been written in 1814, it was not until 102 years later that President Woodrow Wilson issued an executive order declaring the song as our military anthem. Soon after, the American Legion and others began to lobby Congress to declare the song as America's national anthem. Eventually, 117 years after it was written, Congress passed the legislation signed into law by Herbert Hoover in 1931, and there's been controversy ever since. Just 7 years later, singer Kate Smith lit up the country with God Bless America, and many clamored for it to be our anthem. Later came controversial renditions such as Jimi Hendrix at Woodstock, but the fact remains that the Star-Spangled Banner is still our national anthem.